folks like yourself to come and see us and get us pumped up and let us know what's going on out there because we are in our little bubble. Yeah. But with no further ado, Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you very much. I cannot tell you how much energy I feel when I walk into a room like this. I have been traveling all over the country, and many of you, we've been in Iowa, some of you have been in New Hampshire with me. Some of us have been I've been to South Carolina, but coming here is really great for me because this is the city in which my mother lives. And but more than that, it's a city that reminds me that, you know, my this last year, and I don't mean this to be sad at all, but my grandmother, 96 years old, passed away just months ago last year in Las Vegas, and my father as well, 6 days before I was elected to the Senate, passed away here also. And I don't mean that to be down at all, because I learned through those passings that death can end a life, but it can't end a love. And in fact, as I often say, is we, all of us are here because of love, and because of a conspiracy of love, and in fact, because of love of people who weren't even related to us. I really love the idea that we are here today because of the tremendous work and sacrifice of other folks. And I said this when I was in Iowa and New Hampshire, that my parents would never let me forget that understanding that I owe a debt that I can't pay back, that we got to pay it forward. And they really let me know that, you know, everything that I have, my father would look at me walking around a house in Harrington Park, New Jersey, where I grew up, and he would just say, "Cory, boy, just don't walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. You got to understand all that's going into you having the gifts and the blessings that you have." And so for me to be in a room on this beautiful holiday weekend when so many other people are enjoying themselves, and you guys are in a city where there's a whole lot of enjoyment going on around you, but you all have decided to dedicate yourself to this idea that our country isn't finished yet, that we still have work to do, that there's still struggle and sacrifice that is necessitated by the conditions in which we're living. And so I've had this incredible day where I woke up early this morning to go on MSNBC, then to go and speak adjacent to Bernie Sanders in Reno. And I got before that crowd and I just said, look, we are this country that has seen tough times. We all are descended from people who came here as immigrants, as slaves, Native Americans, and there were a lot of tribal folks that were there, and have overcome so much. If you look at the founding of this country, these great ideals, you know, we weren't founded as a theocracy, we weren't founded as this monarchy, divine rights of kings and queens. We were this country founded with a set of principles, ideas, and a spirit. But it was done at a time of savage difficulties. If you think about even our founding documents, women weren't mentioned at all. Native Americans were referred to as savages, African Americans as fractions of human beings. But it's the people of this country, ordinary Americans, who were willing to do extraordinary things to make this democracy real for everybody. And so I'm pretty proud to be an American because of this legacy of struggle and sacrifice. But I know now this idea of facing insurmountable odds and overcoming. I know now that there are a lot of families right now who feel so alone and isolated because they've worked 60 hours this week, but they still now find themselves heading towards the end of the month with more month at the end of their money than money at the end of their month. That there's families right now who feel incredibly isolated because they have an autistic child who they're now is reaching the age of 18, 19 to be able to age out of school, and they don't know how to be there to give them home care as well as their job. There are people here that are struggling with addictions. There are folks who are retired, trying to live off Social Security, but with as well as 5 million Americans, they live in poverty as senior citizens, something that we should have eradicated a long time ago. And so this is why I get motivated. I moved into, I came out of law school and I decided that I was going to try to find one of the toughest neighborhoods I could find in the city that I love. And I moved into Newark, New Jersey, following the call of this great prophet. I think they might study the prophet at Cal. I know we do at Stanford because we study prophets like this. His name is Chris Rock. And you know, Chris Rock had that joke, why is it that often the most violent part of a city is on a street named for the guy that stood for nonviolence. And I moved on to the south end of Martin Luther King Boulevard, and it was, you know, King Boulevard in Newark has so many great, it's a long boulevard, so many great aspects, but in the mid-90s, this was a really tough neighborhood. And I'll never forget the heroes I met right away. It was almost as if, and I have this saying that I say all the time, that when you come to the end of all the light you know and you're about to step into the darkness, faith is knowing one of two things will happen. Either you'll find solid ground underneath you, or the universe will send you people who will teach you how to fly. And so here I was moving into this neighborhood where literally, as I was moving stuff into my apartment, came back to the car and stuff was stolen from the car. There was some tremendous drug dealing going on the street. Lots of periodic violence happened in that neighborhood. But I met these incredible warriors from the community who had not given up on the fact that the American dream could run abundant and wild everywhere and for everyone. And I'll never forget this woman named Miss Virginia Jones, who literally grabbed me in my first weeks there. And she had me in the middle of Martin Luther King Boulevard, and she said to me, what do you see around you? And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, describe what you see. And I said, okay. I just described the crack house, the projects, graffiti, and she suddenly just looked disappointed. And I stopped, and she's like, look, you can't help me. And she started walking away, and I ran after her and grabbed her as respectfully as I could. And this elderly woman in her 70s, I said, what are you talking about? And she wheels around, and she goes, what am I talking about? She goes, you need to understand something, that the world you see outside of you is a reflection of what you have inside of you. And if you're one of these people who only sees darkness and despair and problems, then that's all there's ever going to be. But if you're one of these stubborn people who every time you open your eyes, no matter what the circumstances, you see hope, possibility, you see love, you see the face of God, then you can be someone who helps me. And she walks away from me, leaving me staring at my feet, thinking to myself, okay, grasshopper, thus endeth the lesson. but this is what I encountered in my American journey, is fearless people, tireless people, who understood that they can't change the world themselves, but they would never allow their inability to do everything to undermine their determination to do something. That they understood that there's so much power in this understanding that every moment you have a choice, that you can either accept conditions as they are or take responsibility for changing them. And so here I am in a room of people who are not allowing their inability to do everything to undermine the determination to do something, who are taking responsibility for changing